Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining me here today on our Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday, where I just couldn't wait to bring you this topic. Literally, I went over this, I believe it was just last Friday, and it was on our Friday review, and I was looking into the research, and it was just preliminary research that I was first looking into on how mouthwash actually can cause diabetes. And it was some of the craziest research, honestly, that I'd read in a long time. So I said, okay, this research study does exist. Is there really anything to this? So I just started to dig deeper. And I actually found not only can mouthwash cause diabetes, it can also cause high blood pressure. And I said, this is unbelievable. So I just started to dig into the research. I have a half a dozen different research studies here for you today. I'm just going to present the overview of it, but also just share with you, like, this is what I found when I started to go down the rabbit hole. And it's so unbelievable that I still don't even want to be able to share it, but it's true. Like, this is legitimately true, but it is exactly what happens when you mess with the natural environment, the milieu of the human body. So just to, we're going to get into it, but to cut to the chase, what happens is when you use mouthwash, you are changing the oral bacteria in your mouth. Think about it this way. You know all the issues, hopefully if you've been listening to the Cabral concept, you know all of the issues that happen when you take antibiotics. Now again, sometimes they're life-saving, sometimes you need to take them. But for the most part, if you don't have to take antibiotics, please don't take them. Again, like, I'm not giving you medical advice. If it's life-saving, great, then do that. But if you can get well, get healthy without them, you probably want to look at that, because antibiotics can not only cause, again, I'm not giving you medical advice, medical diagnosis, medical treatment plans here today, right? But they cause dramatic effects in the human body as well. And now we're finding mouthwash acts in almost the same way, but instead in the mouth. But honestly, it can be worse sometimes. And the reason is that, again, as I started to go deeper, people are using mouthwash 1, 2, or more times per day. So let's get into it right now. It's not going to be a long show, but I'm going to share with you exactly what you need to know. And please do share this with your family, with your friends, with your coworkers, because there are healthier ways to freshen your breath than in this particular regard. All right. So the first thing I want to share with you is this, is that yes, by far and away, like I said, this is some of the wilder research that I've read in a long time, but it is absolutely true. And the way that it works is that by using mouthwash, a specific antibacterial or an antiseptic, and we'll get into the difference and what the two different types are in just a moment, and if there are natural variations, which there are that are safer, it affects the aerobic and anaerobic bacteria in the mouth, the balance between the two, and it actually kills bacteria that allows for the production of what's called NO, and NO stands for nitric oxide. Now, I'm going to go over this with you, but everything will be linked up at stephencabral.com/2511. The reason why this is important is because if you didn't tune into last week's show on Thursday, episode 2505, I just want to make sure you do check out that show. And the reason is I go over 5 ways to naturally increase nitric oxide. All right. So really important that you check that out. 5 ways to increase nitric oxide. And so with nitric oxide, it usually gets depleted more and more as we get older. And part of the reason is that we have nitric oxide synthase. It's basically an enzyme that helps convert nitrates from the natural process. So basically we have endogenous processes. That means that happens inside of our body. So endo, think inside. And then we have exogenous, exo, think about outside, right? Like exoskeleton, and endogenous, endo produced, okay? So basically the endogenous process we're getting from things like L-arginine, L-citrulline, et cetera. Okay, so you can get that from our own body's production, breaking down of certain amino acids, proteins, et cetera. Okay, now the exogenous can be from nitrates, or nitrates for the most part, from certain vegetables. Okay, and I named those vegetables last week as well, so we'll link those up. Okay, so we've got two ways, but then we have the nitric oxide synthase, which doesn't typically work as well because of free radical damage, oxidative stress as we get older. So that's why there are some good NO supplements out there. I don't recommend any NO supplements yet. I may this coming year, but the truth is that that's kind of like icing on the cake, I say. Like coenzyme Q10, ubiquinone, phenomenal product, like really great product. And I'm not speaking negatively about it at all. But here's the thing. You need to create a healthy gut microbiome, use things like your daily nutritional support, your daily omega support, daily fruit vegetable blend. Like you need to be using all of your foundational. So first of all, obviously good quality nutrition, right? Moving the body, obviously, sleep, and then your baseline nutritional supplements, like I talk about in the de-stress protocol. And then once you've mastered all those, then you can start using things like ubiquinol. Absolutely, like they're fantastic. But it's the same regard with like NO products. They can be absolutely great, but they're so far down the necessity pool of things that you need to reach into that I just don't like to recommend them right away. Because again, if you're not already doing all these other amazing things, like some people aren't even using their omegas, some people aren't even using things like just a good quality product like a Hispro, which has quercetin and all these great nutrients in it, or something like Cell Boost for mitochondrial health, or Inflammasoothe for balancing healthy levels of inflammation, like full spectrum magnesium, or like a sleep help support. Like all of those come way before, right? Okay. So I just wanted to share that with you. I'm not against NO products. I'm not against them at all. But the thing is, like, as we age, there's always a reason why. Again, I always come to you. There's always a reason why we start to produce less of something. And as we age, yes, there's oxidative stress, there's free radical damage, no doubt about it. Like we can mitigate that 2 degrees. There's no doubt about that. But you have to work on the foundational things first, and then you can add on the NO support. Okay, so let me leave it at that. The reason why, again, nitric oxide is so important because it works with the entire vascular structure of our body. It's basically nitrogen and oxygen, and all of those things are going to help with the entire vascular system. So think of kind of like our arteries, veins, how oxygen can be transported to and from. And again, I know oxygen is obviously used, then it comes and gets reoxygenated again, but again, we're not going through a biology lesson here. So here's the thing. It's also used in your mitochondria. So it's an energy-based, we'll call it nutrient as well. So a lot of people with vision-based issues, a lot of that oxidative stress that wipes out NO. People who have difficulty kind of regulating body temperature can have NO issues. Overall brain fog, fatigue, slow recovery time, sometimes with exercise as well. Overall chronic stress. All of these are signs potentially of low nitric oxide. All right, so I just wanted to share that with you. 2505, I'll link that up today. Again, StephenCabral.com/2511. I'll link up all the research from today, as well as how to boost nitric oxide naturally. Okay, so looking into the research, I don't know if you knew this. This was definitely new to me. I'm not a mouthwash user. I've actually never really been a mouthwash user. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe like as a senior in high school for like a month or two. Like I've go way back. I don't remember. But they did a study and they actually looked at like distribution levels of people using mouthwash in the study. Now, maybe it's just the particular group that they looked at, but I don't know. I mean, again, this was not a pretty well done. This was a very well done study. And I'm going to link it up for you. All of these were well done studies because I'm not going to give you small ones. And here's what they found. So about half, 47%, never use mouthwash. Okay, so like I'm in that. I'm in the 47%. I just don't use mouthwash. I gave you my oral routine. I'll link that up here today as well, like what I do for tongue scraping, flossing, toothbrush, oil pulling, etc. So I'll link that show up as well. And if you ever can't find a show, just ask at cabralsupportgroup.com. Literally just ask like, hey, where's the show on this? And we'll help you out with that. All right. So about 2% use mouthwash less than once a week. About 6% use it 1 to 3 times per week. About another 2% use it 4 to 6 times per week. 21% use it once a day. 16% use it twice a day. And 6% use it more than twice a day, 3, 4, 5 times. And I know some people keep it in their car and they literally mouthwash all day long. Right? And here's the really amazing thing is that we've got 53% of people in the world, or at least in the United States, using mouthwash. And that's a really high number, especially since, now let me share with you, that it's now clinically proven to change the oral microbiome, the oral bacteria in the mouth, affecting the anaerobic bacteria, the bacteria that are going to help to produce more nitric oxide that is essentially a part of the endothelial tissue, and a direct connection between the capillaries in your gums all the way to the arteries in the heart and moving out through the entire body. And what they found, and again, this is very impressive research, and that's why, again, we need the research. So again, I'm a practitioner, I'm a clinician, and researchers are a lot of the PhDs and the people studying this in the lab. We need both, and I think it's, again, like I've always said, you need your PCP, you need your medical doctor, but you have to have an integrative health practitioner. You have to have a natural health practitioner as well. So here's what they found. The detrimental effects of mouthwash on nitric oxide production may even contribute to the development of diabetes, which is characterized by malfunctions in insulin production or action. This is because nitric oxide also regulates insulin, which helps cells utilize the energy obtained from food after it's digested. Without nitric oxide, insulin cannot work properly. One study found that people who used mouthwash at least twice daily were about half more likely, so about 50% more likely, it's 49 technically, to develop diabetes than who never used mouthwash. So people who use it twice a day are more than 50% greater likelihood to develop diabetes than those who never use mouthwash. And I mean, that's an incredible statistic right there. So, but it goes on because they're being conservative, which I understand. Right in an article, you can't say, you can't be so definitive. And that's why I'm saying, yeah, you're about 50% more likely. But these studies, let me just read you them. Physiological role for nitrate reducing oral bacteria in, we're going to get to that one in a moment. We'll get to the blood pressure in just a moment. Nitrate, nitrite, nitric oxide pathway in reducing physiology and therapeutics. So we'll get into that, how that is in the development of diabetes. Talking about it's called the clinical study to assess the 12-hour antimicrobial effects of cetylpyridinium chloride mouthwashes on supragingival plaque bacteria. We go into that, showing that it's not just alcohol-based mouthwash. So I'm going to give you my recommendations at the end. We're going to go over the increase in plasma nitrate after a dietary nitrate load is markedly attenuated by antibacterial mouthwash, meaning like if you even eat healthy foods and vegetables and all these things, just using mouthwash alone will negate those effects. All right. And so what I want to share with you now is the first study, over-the-counter mouthwash use and risk of prediabetes and diabetes. And so what they found is this was a 3-year study. So they did let's see, a group between the ages of 40 and 65, and it was over 1,200 individuals. And they ended up following the study 3 years with 945 of those individuals. So many of the participants, 43% used mouthwash at least once daily and 22% at least twice daily. All right, so the vast majority, or 43% of these people used it once daily, 22% twice daily. And what they found, because they looked at actually their fasting glucose, the 2-hour post-load glucose, CRP, and multivariate models. And the conclusion was frequent regular use of the over-the-counter mouthwash was associated with increased risk of developing prediabetes and diabetes in this population. But here's the more amazing thing. They were actually just comparing the 43%, so the once-a-day people, to the twice-a-day people. So the twice-a-day people were even more likely than the once-a-day people to develop diabetes. But the group using it once a day was still more likely to develop diabetes. That's why I wish this study just kind of went one step further, which is basically control group, no mouthwash, or less than, let's say, once a week. Then we've got the group using it once a day, and then this group at least twice daily. So again, the more you use it, just like antibiotics or anything else, the worse the effects. All right, so that's on diabetes. And again, it's affecting the body's actually ability to regulate glucose and therefore insulin as well. Or I should say regulate insulin and therefore glucose levels. If you cannot shuttle the glucose, basically sugar molecules, into your cells, you're going to develop more, not just body fat, but inflammation as well, which could also lead to what is called insulin insensitivity or desensitization desensitization and lead to pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, which is basically a 5.7 on your hemoglobin A1C or greater, or a fasting glucose of 126 or greater for an extended period of time. All right, so the second group though, this was brand new as I started digging into the diabetes research, but it makes total sense because if you decrease nitric oxide, it's one more reason why people can have high blood pressure. Now, it's not the only reason. I did a high blood pressure show, which I'll link up today. It was like in 2016, so like first year. All the different reasons why people have high blood pressure. And again, I've been in practice a long time, so I've seen this, I've read the research, I understand it, meaning like, okay, we've got hardening of the arteries and vasculature with stenosis, we've got elevated levels of cortisol, we've got imbalanced levels of sodium to potassium, we've got imbalanced levels of magnesium to sodium, we have imbalanced levels of calcium to magnesium. Now, there are other risk factors as well, one of these being nitric oxide. So I'll do another whole show on high blood pressure, but I just want you to know that there's always an underlying root cause to high blood pressure. I don't care if it's in someone's genetics. Listen, I get it, I understand, but you didn't have high blood pressure at 10 years old, right? So let's not just say like it magically appears at 35 years old or 46 years old. It happens because the body becomes imbalanced. It goes back to the rain barrel effect. You've accumulated too many toxicities and you're now deficient as you age in certain nutrients, right? So you've got deficiencies and you have toxicities, and that's the thing. Like you can empty your rain barrel, so removing toxicities, and you can do that by partially improving your deficiencies. So when you do that and you replace your deficiencies and you remove your toxicities, well, then you can no longer have dis-ease in the body. And if you can't have dis-ease in the body, then you can't have high blood pressure. So, right, so like you can say like, well, you know, you can't say that you cure disease, and I agree. I'm not saying that I cure disease. What I help people do is fix the underlying root cause where disease can then no longer exist. All right, because disease is simply a name for a collection of symptoms. So here we are. One more reason why people have high blood pressure. When you lower levels of nitric oxide, you then do what? You do not allow for proper circulation. You do not allow for what is called vasodilation. Vasodilation, if you're watching this on video, basically I have my hand held up and a little circle. I'm just holding a little bit of light through almost like a lightly closed fist. And when there's nitric oxide being produced in the lining of that vasculature, let's just say the artery there or the blood flow, let's keep it simple. What happens is nitric oxide opens that hole, right? So now you can see through that hole, there's daylight. That allows then for proper vasculature. If it's held very tightly, what happens? The pressure inside of that increases, right? The vasculature, the pressure inside of the vasculature increases. When it increases, you get a high blood pressure reading. So is the goal to just go out and take NO supplements? No, it's not. They can't help, but the goal is to actually assess why you might have low levels of nitric oxide. Mouthwash apparently is one big reason why. I've got multiple studies here on high blood pressure, and it's unbelievable. And so again, this is one of those things where let's move over to a natural health-based oral care routine. Mouthwash will actually make your breath smell worse in the long run. Believe it or not, that's why you have to keep using it. The reason is that it destroys the bacteria in your mouth. Yeah, it kills the negative bacteria, the bad bacteria, but if you don't have good bacteria, well, then your breath will always smell because it will just come back within hours, right? And so then you do it again. You got to look at your gut dysfunction. You have to look at your microbiome in your mouth. All right, so what I want to do, again, I'm going to link up the research. If you want to go deep on this, great. StephenCabral.com/2511. But I always want to leave you what you can do, right? So like, what can we do? All right. So we need to move away from antibacterial and antiseptic-based mouthwash. I'm not going to name any brands so that they don't get all huffy and upset and all of those different things. I don't even know what the word huffy means, but it's an old school word my grandmother used to use. And I think this is perfectly acceptable time to use that right here. So if we look at that, let's say, what does it look like? So there are certain ingredients that we need to stay away from. An antibacterial mouthwash means that it kills the bacteria in your mouth. We've already established we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to kill the bacteria in our mouth. We just want to put in then proper foods so that negative anaerobic bacteria doesn't overgrow. All right, so that's one part of it. All right, so it's obviously nutrition. Now, an antiseptic mouthwash, here's the difference. Typically there's an antibacterial with it, but an antiseptic also targets fungi, yeast, spores, and viruses as well, right? So antibacterial, no viruses. Antiviral, that's viruses. Antiseptic, it covers that. So again, you might say, well, this is great because it kills all of those things. I would disagree with you. I would say that these things, antibacterials, antiseptics, are actually going to lower the immune system. Now, that's not, I have to do additional research on that, but again, like how deep do we want to go? Because the truth is, we can just stop using mouthwash. Right? That's the bottom line. We can use more natural things. We can eat more natural-based foods, fruits and vegetables. Again, I've talked about this before, but again, there's this wild conspiracy online apparently against brightly colored fruits and vegetables, the only anti-cancer-based foods that we know. Very, very interesting. So what I want to share with you is this: the oil pulling is still okay. I think that we have to look into like not overdoing that as well. I do it once a day. That's the max that I do it for, but I'm going to look into that to a greater degree as well. But the difference is these are not synthetics. So it's always amazing that if we use something from nature, sesame, in this case, in the other case, coconut oil, or even things like essential oils, like essential oil spray that is meant to be oral based, because a lot of them are just supposed to be topical. Now, these things all seem to be okay. They seem to be preferentially killing the bad bacteria. Like with our CBO protocol for the gut, it seems that things like oregano oil, cloves, thyme, powder arco, etc., uva ursi, they preferentially kill the bad bacteria that shouldn't be there. Again, and when we use things from nature, we seem to then get this natural balance in the body. So I found this just wildly amazing, and maybe you don't to the same degree, but this is obviously what I love, what I eat, sleep, and breathe. And for me, this is always fascinating when I get to learn something new. So health practitioners, if you're a practitioner listening to this, ask your clients or patients when you're doing an intake, do you use mouthwash? That is going to be something we start to ask our wellness clients inside of Equilife. I recommend you do the same because it is actually very detrimental when it comes to 2 of the leading causes of death: high blood pressure and related strokes, as well as type 2 diabetes. All right, thank you everybody for tuning into the show. Once again, all the takeaways, all the research will be at stephencabral.com/2511.